News of the day, I'm Frances Hurd, and we start with the investment community breathing a sigh of relief today after threatening to slap new tariffs on Chinese goods. US President Donald Trump's administration backed down this afternoon. The additional 10% tariff on some $300 billion worth of Chinese imports was set to be implemented on September the 1st. Well, the trade war has been negatively affecting our own rand. So let's look at how our currency fared on the back of that news. And indeed, the rand strengthening by more than 1%. So strengthening finally after a very rough few days. After reaching for 15 rand 50 this week, it was trading at around 15.12 by the close of business. This sharp drop here, I think when that news was announced. And remember that a downward trend on this graph means that the rand is strengthening because suddenly you see less, you need less rand to buy $1. Oil prices also rose after the US said it would delay those tariffs, easing concerns over the global trade war that has pummeled markets in recent months. Well, the JSE not following suit, it closed 1/3% in the red. With that, let's take a look at your main financial indicators. Some company news. Global retailer Steinhoff says it's considering selling more of its businesses to focus on companies in its stable that are making profits. CEO Louis de Preux said this at an investor presentation in Cape Town today. This was the first public engagement since its share price plunged in late December 2017, of course at the start of that accounting scandal. De Preux, who took over the role on a permanent basis at the end of last year, told investors that while total group turnover was solid, Steinhoff was struggling with profitability. He said accounting irregularities probed by PwC in a forensic investigation had served to mask the poor financial performance of some of the group's businesses. He added that while Steinhoff has instituted civil claims, it cannot initiate criminal proceedings against the former CEO Marcus Jooste, who denies any wrongdoing. Now, the Association of Mine Workers and Construction Union, AMCU, says it's disappointed with the wage offer by Sibanye-Stillwater to Lonmin workers. Today, the trade union's president, Joseph Matunjwa, gave an update on its development in the wage negotiations in the platinum sector. He described the current wage offer as a provocation. It comes, of course, as AMCU and South Africa prepare to commemorate the Marikana massacre on Friday.
Earlier this year, trade union AMCU announced a 17,000 rand wage demand, but platinum producer Sibanye-Stillwater has offered workers at its Lonmin operation far less, while Amplat has offered a wage increase of 1,000 rand in the first year and 800 rand in the second and third year. Sibanye has offered workers a 3-year increase of 300 rand in the first year, 350 rand in the second, and 400 rand in the third. AMCU President Joseph Matunjwa said the current wage offer is a provocation that is provoking the union to go on strike.
The second quarter of Lonmin, the operational profit was 1.1 billion. Remember, 1.1 billion operation profit. That money was made by the workers at Lonmin. Sibanye was nowhere to be found by then. And for Sibanye to come and claim poverty, to say they cannot give workers increase, surely they are up for war. They are up for war. They are provoking us.
Matunjwa has called on President Cyril Ramaphosa to declare the 16th of August Workers' Day. He said the union will gather at Kopi to commemorate the Marikana massacre. Kopi is where 34 striking workers were shot and killed by the police.
We call upon which now the state president, Honorable Babu Ramaphosa, he should speedily recognize the 16th of August as the Workers' Day of the workers in South Africa. Then we could see that he is serious about cleansing that area as a sign of sincere apology. But until such this is realized, that would be very hypocritical of him to suggest that he has apologized.
Matunja said discussions with the Department of Labour over intentions to deregister the union are going well. He said they will know their fate come next week. Banetla Mthethwa, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Now, the Industrial Development Corporation has missed some targets after what it calls a very tough year. But it says its economic contribution to the South African economy remains substantial. The IDC was releasing results for the year that ended in March today. Of course, it is a state-owned entity established by government to promote economic development and growth. The IDC does this by granting loans to companies that need to expand, especially if they are run by black industrialists or if they are in sectors deemed important for South Africa. The IDC says total funding for the year was 11.8 billion and nearly 20,000 jobs were created or saved as a result. Well, earlier I spoke to the CEO of the Industrial Development Corporation, Shokola Nchoncho. The IDC is not using taxpayers' money like many SOEs, but profits are down. I started by asking him if the organization is just treading water at the moment.
The economy is really difficult. The organization lends money to businesses. It lends money and it invests in the real economy. And when those underlying businesses are as under pressure as they are, it filters through to a company such as ourselves that provides finance. And therefore, as we saw, and this is the second factor in our presentation, and that is that there was a significant classification of the way we handle provisions, impairments on our loans and investments based on the new accounting standard. And so it is these factors that have played onto our income statement. But yes, we recognize going forward there is a need to tackle the level of our impairments and to improve that. But yeah, we are not in a bad space. The year-on-year comparison, remember, of the profit last year was just over 800 million, and it is down to about 700 this year.
So today's presentation started with a look at the faces, the people who actually benefit. You're talking about exciting opportunities in mining, in tourism. Make it real for us. Who benefits?
Yes, the IDC is a very interesting organization in the sense that it has a mandate to finance large-scale project initiatives. So you have a situation where we grant money to renewable energy projects. We finance significant investments in the mining sector, which are large quantum transactions. But at the same time, we finance small and medium-sized businesses. So the one example I remember since I joined here is a textile business, for instance, in the Western Cape, to which we advance 80 million. And there is in excess of 500 people who are employed in that enterprise. So those are the kind of enterprises that we finance. So it is a business banking organization, but at the same time it's a big corporate banking organization. In the agricultural sector, very interesting projects. The one I remember somewhere in Mpumalanga, it's a company that dries fruit. And the investment was somewhere in the order of around 60 million rand. But significant employment creation, one, and two, the utilization of unused land in that particular area.
And black industrialists, that has been a focus since 2015.
Yes.
Any success stories there?
It has been a significant success because our approvals to companies that are in that particular category, black industrialists, is on the high side of 6 billion rand for this past financial year. And remember, black industrialist companies that have black control, significant black ownership, and so on. So in partnership with the Department of Trade and Industry, we have advanced that much, 6 billion, and we hope to increase that envelope going forward. As the Minister suggested, there are greater synergies that can and should be built between the IDC as a lender, as an investor, and government as a provider of grant-type capital.
Yeah. Government and the Minister have pushed a big focus on entrepreneurs, young people. And a question is, are we doing it right? Because a lot of people have told me that they're not seeing good success rates in those young people, but older people who've gone through the corporate ladder, who've gained experience. Are we not trying to push something sometimes that doesn't work?
No, I don't think so. Just recently, if I may say, I visited Adrian Gore and the CEO Circle, and they showcased a couple of businesses that they support there under the SME fund. Those entrepreneurs are in their 30s, some of them are in their late 20s. People who have left the corporate sector very early on and started businesses. And so, in the context of the IDC, I think what we are showing, even in our disbursement profile, I indicated today that in the order of around 26% or so of the money that we advanced goes into new venture creation. And indeed, when you look at the profile of those people, they are not old people. They're younger people, people in the middle age, I think, who still have significant runway in their lives to build businesses. And another, remember, significant statistic that I mentioned was that in excess of around 45-47% or so of the funding that we granted as well went into expansionary, growth-type investments. And that's very important to say you are already an established business and you can multiply your capacity, employ more people, deliver more product output into the economy, if it's an export-oriented business, and more foreign exchange earnings, and so on and so on.
So let's talk about the bigger picture where the IDC fits in. It sounds good, but if you look at it over the last year, you created or saved 20,000 jobs. In the big context, that's like a drop in the ocean.
It does feel like a drop in the ocean because you are looking at it in the context of the contribution that the IDC is making vis-a-vis an unemployment rate that is said to be in the order of 30% or whatever the number is, 12 or whatever, 10 million people who are unemployed out there. So when you look at it in that context, it becomes discouraging maybe, but all we can say is that each and every sector that we finance has a particular job intensity factor. If you finance more in the agricultural sector, the job creation ratio per million rand is probably higher. If you finance into the high-tech space, that employment ratio is a little bit lower. So it is a contribution that we can make. And employment creation, as you know, is a derivative of the size of investment. So if we were to lift our investment activity from the current reported 11.5 billion, maybe to double that in the next coming number of years, who knows? Our contribution could be a little higher.
And final question, you want to do more, but is it possible? We're heading towards a possible downgrade. People are very pessimistic about the South African economy.
We refuse to be pessimistic because we can't afford to. I pointed out that there are certain strengths to which we should play as a country. I mean, our natural resources endowment, agriculture in the mineral sector, tourism assets, the sophisticated nature of the general financing system to enable financial flows into the economy. These are the kind of things that we should leverage. So it is not time to hang our heads down in despondence. We have to give it our best shot.
Well, President Cyril Ramaphosa saying earlier this year that the IDC needed to do more, loan more, 20 billion at least to businesses, to young entrepreneurs, to people who can create jobs and help grow this economy. We'll see if they can meet those new targets. And thank you very much. That was the bottom line, a wrap of your business news. From me, it's a wrap. Good night.
We're very keen to hear why must Zuma's character be assassinated.
Mzwandile, former President Jacob Zuma, doesn't believe that there was state capture.
He did qualify to say his understanding may be limited.
There's lots of red on the board behind you. Is it a true reflection of what's happening on the markets today?
Yeah, it certainly is, Nzing. About 0.1% lower thus far for the markets here locally.
Your money on market sense. South Africa needs jobs.
The people that are in the country and even those that are in
Mr.
outside the
Madoza, and
country.
say those who are protesting were saying that they are engaged in the government. Poverty. How do we resolve that?
Data is one of our major challenges, even with the implementation and measurement of the Sustainable Development Goals.
Is the continental body fulfilling its mandate in terms of peace and security?
They have not been consistent. There has been no political will. A huge fault. A huge body with no teeth to solve African problems.